The Vigilant drifted silently through the darkness of deep space, her hull gleaming dully in the distant starlight. From afar, she might have looked like any other Terran defense vessel, but those who knew her understood she was something entirely different. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, her reflection ghosting against the stars as she watched the slow dance of debris in the ship's wake. "Status report," she called out, not turning from her vigil. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency around her, their movements precise and purposeful. "All systems nominal, Commander." Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez responded from his engineering station, his fingers dancing across both holographic displays and old-style mechanical controls. "The hybrid drive is performing exactly as designed. Quantum core stable. Backup fusion systems standing by." The Vigilant was unique in the fleet. While other ships had embraced full automation and AI integration, Sarah had insisted on maintaining redundant manual systems alongside the advanced technology. It had earned her criticism from Fleet Command and mockery from other captains, but she'd stood firm. 20 years of deep space operations had taught her that redundancy wasn't inefficiency. It was survival. "Contact, bearing 347 Mark II, called out Ensign Patel from the sensor station. Her voice carried the distinctive calm of someone trained to handle both quantum scanning arrays and traditional electromagnetic detection systems. Large mass, no known registry signature. Sarah finally turned from the window, her dark eyes narrowing. "Classification." "That's the strange part, Commander," Patel replied, frowning at her displays. "It's shifting. One moment our quantum sensors read it as a mass comparable to a heavy cruiser. The next it barely registers as more than space dust on the traditional arrays." "Stealth tech," Lieutenant Rodriguez suggested, already adjusting power distribution to their defensive systems. Sarah shook her head slowly. "No, something else." She'd seen enough oddities in deep space to trust her instincts. Full stop. "Power down quantum systems, but keep traditional sensors active. Let's see what we're really looking at." The bridge crew responded without hesitation. Holographic displays winked out one by one, replaced by the soft green glow of older LCD screens. The quantum core's hum faded to a whisper as the ship's backup systems took over. In the sudden relative quiet, the mechanical clicks and whirs of manual operations felt reassuringly solid. "Contact stabilizing," Patel reported after a moment. "Traditional sensors showing consistent mass now. It's huge, Commander. Definitely not natural." Sarah moved to the sensor station, studying the readings herself. The object was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Vigilant, and its structure defied conventional geometry. It seemed to fold in on itself in ways that shouldn't be possible in normal space. "First contact protocol," Sarah announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "But keep our quantum systems cold. Something tells me we don't want to advertise our full capabilities just yet." As if in response to her words, the massive object suddenly flared with light. A beam of energy, unlike anything in their database, swept across the Vigilant's bow. Sarah tensed, but the ship's hybrid shielding held firm. The combination of traditional electromagnetic deflectors and quantum barrier technology proving more resilient than either system alone would have been. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Zhang announced. Well, I'm not entirely sure what it is. The quantum receivers are offline, but we're picking up something on the old radio bands. Audio only." "Let's hear it," Sarah ordered, returning to her command chair. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a sound that made several crew members wince. It wasn't quite language, not exactly music, but something in between. After several seconds, it resolved into words that seemed to bypass their ears and materialize directly in their minds. "Primitive vessel, you have been evaluated and found wanting. Your mixed technology approach is inefficient and illogical. The Nexus Collective offers elevation through integration. Resistance is unnecessary. Compliance will be rewarded with optimization." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but her voice remained steady as she responded. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Vessel Vigilant. We acknowledge your presence but reject any unauthorized attempts at optimization. This is sovereign human space." The response came immediately, the alien voice tinged with what might have been amusement. "Your understanding is irrelevant. Your technology is inconsistent. Your methods chaotic. The collective brings order. The process has already begun." Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple system failures," Rodriguez shouted. "Something's trying to access our quantum networks. It's like nothing I've seen before. The AI firewalls are just dissolving." But Sarah was already moving, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Initiate Protocol Prometheus," she ordered. "Full shutdown of all quantum systems. Transfer control to manual backups. Show our friends from the collective what primitive really means." As the Vigilant's advanced systems went dark, the older technology hummed to life. Mechanical gyros spun up, chemical thrusters fired, and analog circuits carried commands through hardened wires. The ship transformed from a modern marvel of technology into something older, simpler, and far more difficult to control from the outside. "Fascinating," the alien voice commented, now coming through static-filled speakers rather than directly into their minds. "Your response is unexpected, inefficient, yet somehow effective. This requires further analysis." "We're full of surprises," Sarah replied, watching as her crew worked seamlessly with their backup systems. "Humanity didn't make it to the stars by being predictable." "Now, would you like to continue this conversation, or should we demonstrate more of our primitive capabilities?" The massive alien vessel hung silently in space, its impossible geometry seeming to shift and twist, as if struggling to process this unexpected development. Sarah Chen and her crew waited, their hands steady on controls both old and new, ready for whatever came next. The Vigilant might not have been the most advanced ship in the fleet, but at that moment, she was exactly what humanity needed. A bridge between past and future, proof that progress didn't always mean abandoning what came before. The first contact with the Nexus Collective had begun, and with it, a challenge that would test not just the Vigilant and her crew, but humanity's entire approach to technology and progress. As Sarah studied the alien vessel through the bridge window, she couldn't help but wonder if perhaps humanity's greatest strength lay not in their most advanced achievements, but in their ability to embrace both the old and the new, the simple and the complex, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. The news spread through human space like a shockwave. Within hours of the Vigilant's encounter, similar vessels of the Nexus Collective appeared near every major human settlement. Their message was always the same: optimization through integration, elevation through submission. But it was their actions that truly revealed their intentions. Commander Chen watched the reports flood in on the Vigilant's backup communications array, her jaw tightening with each new transmission. The collected ships had begun their optimization process without waiting for humanity's response. Any vessel or station running purely on quantum systems found itself suddenly hijacked, its AI cores rewritten, its crews locked out of their own systems. "They're not invading us," Sarah murmured, studying the tactical display where red dots indicated compromised human assets. "They're trying to upgrade us, whether we want it or not." Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station, his face illuminated by the warm glow of analog displays. "The Arcturus station just went dark, Commander. 5,000 people trapped inside while the collective rewrites their life support systems to meet their standards of efficiency." Sarah's fingers drummed against her command chair. The Vigilant had spent the last 6 hours running silent, their quantum systems cold, observing the collective's methodical advance through human space. They weren't destroying human installations, they were improving them, forcing their own technological standards onto humanity's infrastructure with a cold, calculating precision. "Update from Fleet Command," Communications Officer Zhang announced, her hands working both a modern tablet and an old-style radio set. They're falling back to the old emergency protocols. All ships capable of running on backup systems are being ordered to power down their quantum tech. How many can actually do that? Sarah asked, already suspecting the answer. Maybe 20% of the fleet, Rodriguez replied grimly. Most ships these days don't even have backup systems. They're completely dependent on their AI cores and quantum networks. Sarah nodded slowly. The vigilant hybrid approach, once mocked as overcautious and inefficient, had suddenly become humanity's greatest asset. What about the colonies? The older ones are adapting better, Jean reported. Places like New Eden and Titan Base still maintain mechanical backup systems. But the newer settlements... She trailed off, letting the silence speak volumes. The bridge crew worked in focused tension, each understanding the gravity of their situation. Humanity had spent decades pushing forward, embracing each new technological advancement, often discarding older systems as obsolete. Now that eagerness for progress had become a vulnerability. "Commander," Ensign Patel called out suddenly, her voice tight. Multiple quantum signatures appearing. The collective is making another push. Through the bridge viewport, space itself seemed to fold as three massive collective vessels emerged from whatever dimensional space they used for travel. Their impossible geometry still defied human understanding. But now Sarah thought she saw something like purpose in their movements. "They're scanning us," Rodriguez reported, "but only picking up our backup systems. As far as they can tell, we're running on technology centuries behind their level." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Let them think that." Zhang, broadcast on all frequencies, old and new. "It's time to show the collective what they're really dealing with." As Zhang prepared the communication systems, Sarah stood at her command station, her voice clear and steady as she addressed not just the alien vessels, but all human ships and stations that might be listening. "To all commands, this is Commander Chen of the Vigilant. The collective views our technological diversity as a weakness. They see our mixture of old and new systems as inefficient, our reluctance to fully automate as primitive. They believe they're offering us elevation, but what they're really demanding is surrender. The surrender of our ability to choose our own path forward." She paused, watching as the collective vessels moved to surround the Vigilant. But they've made a crucial mistake. They judge advancement only by the newest technology, failing to understand that true progress means building upon what came before, not discarding it. Every human vessel still carries the echo of our first steps into space. Every colony remembers the principles that got us off Earth. The collective ships hung motionless now, as if listening. Sarah continued, her words carrying across space through both quantum channels and simple radio waves. "They think they're dealing with a primitive species that needs to be upgraded. Let's show them what primitive really means. To all ships and stations that can hear this, power down your quantum systems. Fall back on your backup tech, no matter how old. The collective can't control what they don't understand, and they don't understand how to handle a species that remembers its roots." As if in response, the nearest collective vessel pulsed with energy, its transmission cutting through their communications. "Your resistance is illogical. Your insistence on maintaining obsolete systems demonstrates your need for optimization. The process will continue." "No," Sarah replied simply. "It won't, because you've forgotten something important about technology." She nodded to Rodriguez, who had been quietly working at his station. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Rodriguez pressed a sequence of very traditional, very mechanical buttons. From the Vigilant's hull, a burst of electromagnetic energy erupted, not the sophisticated weapons the collective would expect, but a simple, massive EMP burst generated by technology that predated quantum computing by centuries. The effect on the collective ships was immediate and dramatic. Their impossible geometries flickered, their perfect surfaces showing distortion as their quantum fields struggled against this most basic form of attack. They had defenses against every modern weapon, but they had never considered the need to defend against something so primitive. All ships capable of implementing this modification. I'm transmitting the specifications now," Sarah announced, as Jean began broadcasting the details of their improvised weapon. "For those who can't, fall back to the outer colonies. We'll show the collective that humanity's strength isn't in having the newest technology. It's in remembering everything that brought us to this point." As the collective vessels retreated to a safe distance, their perfect formations now somewhat ragged, Sarah turned to her crew. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "They'll adapt to this tactic. But so will we, because that's what humanity does best. We adapt, we improvise, and we never, ever forget where we came from." The bridge crew nodded in understanding. The real battle was just beginning, but they had already proven something crucial. Sometimes the path forward meant remembering the past. The collective had wanted to optimize humanity, but in doing so, they had awakened something they couldn't control: the human talent for combining the old with the new in ways that defied prediction or control. Deep in the Vigilance engineering bay, Lieutenant Rodriguez stood before a makeshift assembly of technology that spanned 3 centuries of human innovation. Jury-rigged vacuum tubes sat alongside quantum processors. Mechanical relays clicked next to holographic interfaces. It shouldn't have worked. By every standard of modern engineering, it couldn't work. But it did. "We're calling it the Hybrid Interface Network," he explained to Commander Chen, who studied the bizarre arrangement with intense interest, or HIN for short. "It lets us switch between quantum and analog systems almost instantly, but more importantly, it lets them work together in ways the collective can't predict." Sarah ran her hand along a panel where fiber optic cables intertwined with old copper wiring. "How many ships can implement this?" "That's the beauty of it." Rodriguez grinned, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Almost any ship with even basic backup systems can adapt some version of it. We're already helping the Dauntless and the Horizon modify their systems. Each ship's version will be slightly different, depending on what old tech they have available. The collective won't be able to develop a single countermeasure because there won't be a single system to counter." 3 days had passed since their first encounter with the collective. 3 days of constant adaptation and innovation as humanity fought back against forced technological optimization, with every tool at their disposal. The Vigilant had become a floating laboratory of experimental tech, combining centuries of human ingenuity in ways that would have seemed insane just a week ago. "Commander to the bridge," John's voice came through the old-style intercom. "We're receiving new reports from the inner colonies." Sarah and Rodriguez made their way through corridors where crew members worked on exposed panels, installing hybrid systems and manually operated backups. The bridge, when they reached it, was a stark contrast of old and new technology working in harmony. "Status," Sarah ordered, taking her command chair. "The collective is adapting," Ensign Patel reported, her hands moving between modern and classic sensor displays. "They've developed shielding against basic EMP attacks. But that's not the interesting part." She looked up, excitement clear in her eyes. "They're starting to show signs of confusion." Sarah leaned forward. "Explain." "Their ship's behavior patterns are becoming erratic. Every time they think they've figured out how to counter our technology, we switch to a different combination of systems. Their perfect formations are breaking down. They're actually starting to make mistakes. They can't predict us because we're not following any logical progression of technology," Rodriguez added. "We're mixing and matching centuries of human innovation in ways their optimization algorithms can't process." A sudden alert from the tactical station drew everyone's attention. "Collective vessel approaching," Patil announced. "But something's different about this one." The ship that appeared on their viewers was smaller than the previous collective vessels, its impossible geometry somehow less confident. When it transmitted, the voice was different too. Less certain, almost curious. "Human vessel Vigilant. Your responses continue to defy optimization parameters. Your technological approach introduces variables that cannot be properly calculated. This is interesting." Sarah exchanged glances with her crew before responding. Perhaps that's because advancement isn't always linear. Sometimes the best solution is a combination of approaches. Your species maintains technological systems that are clearly inefficient, the collective voice replied. Yet you combine them in ways that achieve unexpected results. This requires study. That's not going to happen, Sarah said firmly. But we're willing to talk about cooperation instead of forced optimization. The collective ship's response was cut off by a priority alert from Zhang's communication station. Commander, emergency transmission from New Eden Colony. They're under attack, but not from the collective. Some kind of automated defense system, originally installed by an Earth corporation. The colony's quantum override codes aren't working. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so dangerous, Sarah muttered. Our own advanced technology turning against us, just like the collective's attempts at optimization. She straightened in her chair. How long to reach New Eden at full thrust? 6 hours using quantum drive, Rodriguez calculated, 10 with conventional engines. Sarah turned to the visual pickup, addressing the collective vessel. You want to study human innovation? Here's your chance. We have a colony in danger from malfunctioning automated defenses. You can either help us save them, or watch how we handle it ourselves. Either way, you'll learn something about how humanity really works. There was a long pause before the collective responded. This scenario presents an opportunity for comparative analysis. We will observe. Plot a course for New Eden, Sarah ordered. And get me a secure channel to the colony. If we're going to demonstrate human innovation to our audience, let's make it good. As the Vigilant prepared for emergency thrust, Sarah gathered her crew for a quick briefing. This is more than just a rescue mission, she told them. It's a chance to show the collective that true advancement isn't about having the most sophisticated technology. It's about understanding when to use each tool at your disposal. Rodriguez nodded, already pulling up schematics of New Eden's defense systems. We'll need every trick we've developed, old and new. The automated defenses will be expecting modern countermeasures. Then we'll give them something they're not expecting, Sarah replied. Something that combines 3 centuries of human problem-solving in ways no AI can predict. She looked around at her crew, seeing the same determination reflected in every face. Let's show both our own rogue technology and the collective what happens when humanity stops trying to just move forward and instead learns to move in every direction at once. The Vigilant accelerated toward New Eden, its hybrid systems humming with power both old and new. Behind them, the collective vessel followed, its perfect geometry seeming somehow less rigid, as if the very act of observing human adaptability was beginning to change it. The next few hours would either prove humanity's approach superior or demonstrate its flaws, but either way, it would be a lesson the collective would never forget. As they approached the colony, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The collective had come to optimize humanity. But instead, they were about to learn that true optimization wasn't about pursuing a single path of advancement. It was about keeping every option open, remembering every lesson learned, and being ready to combine them in ways that no one, human or alien, could predict. New Eden's orbital space was chaos when the Vigilant arrived. The colony's automated defense platforms, originally designed to protect against external threats, had turned their weapons inward. Quantum-guided missiles and plasma beams lashed out at the colony's shields, each impact calculated with artificial precision. Analysis. Commander Chen ordered, standing at the tactical display where the situation unfolded in both holographic detail and traditional radar plots. Defense platforms are fully automated, Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across multiple interfaces. Latest quantum AI cores, but the base programming dates back 30 years. They've somehow locked out all modern override protocols. Colonial shield strength at 40% and falling, Patil added. They'd got about 20 minutes before critical failure. The collective vessel hung back, observing with what Sarah imagined was intense interest. This was humanity's problem turned against itself, the very sort of technological weakness they had come to optimize out of existence. Time to show them how humans handle optimization. Sarah said, "Rodriguez, is the AI ready?" "Ready as it'll ever be, Commander." He patted the hybrid interface panel. "Though what we're about to try would probably give any traditional engineer a heart attack." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "Traditional engineering is what got us into this mess. Zhang, get me a channel to the colony. Let's coordinate this properly." The colony's response came through scratchy and distorted. They were using backup radio systems to avoid the defense platform's quantum interference. "Commander Chen, this is Colonial Governor Martinez. Please tell me you have a solution. We've got 10,000 people down here, and our shelters won't survive a direct hit." "We have a plan," Sarah assured him. "But I need you to do something that's going to sound crazy. How many pre-quantum computers do you have in storage?" There was a pause. "We maintain a museum of early colonial technology. Got maybe a dozen old systems, purely mechanical processors, but they haven't been powered up in years." "Power them up," Sarah ordered. "All of them. And get ready to link them to your main systems on my mark." She turned to her crew. "Time to show everyone what human innovation really looks like. Rodriguez, begin Phase 1. The Vigilance hybrid systems hummed to life, quantum processors working in concert with analog computers in ways their designers had never imagined. From the ship's bow, a focused beam of electromagnetic energy lashed out, not at the defense platforms, but at the space between them, creating a quantum interference field. Rodriguez explained, more for the collective's benefit than anyone else's. The defense platforms can't calculate firing solutions through it, but that's just the distraction. While the defense platform's AI cores struggled to adapt to the interference, the Vigilant launched what looked like primitive missiles. They were anything but. Each projectile contained a mixture of technologies: mechanical guidance systems from humanity's first space age, analog computers from their second, and quantum processors from their third. "The defense platforms can't predict what they can't understand," Sarah explained as the missiles wove through space in patterns that defied AI prediction algorithms. "Their targeting systems are looking for either primitive ballistics or advanced quantum signatures. We're giving them both, neither, and everything in between." The first missile struck its target, not with an explosion, but with a cascade of signals across every spectrum of communication. Old radio waves carried viruses written in quantum code. Digital signals propagated through analog circuits. The defense platform's AI core tried to defend against everything at once and succeeded against nothing. "Platform 1 is offline," Paddle reported excitedly. "Its targeting systems are completely confused, getting feedback from sensors that shouldn't even be able to talk to each other." "Now, Governor," Sarah ordered through the comlink, "boot up those old computers and link them to your main grid. Let's show these platforms what real processing chaos looks like." The colony's systems came online in a dizzying array of technological generations. Ancient binary computers processed data alongside quantum cores, creating patterns of information that no single system could properly interpret. The defense platforms, faced with input they couldn't optimize or predict, began to falter. "Their AI cores are crashing," Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. "They can't handle the conflicting data streams. It's like trying to optimize chaos itself." The collective vessel, which had been silently observing, finally transmitted. "This approach defies all logical optimization parameters. You are deliberately introducing inefficiency and chaos into your systems, yet the results exceed predicted outcomes. That's because true optimization isn't about removing every inefficiency," Sarah replied as she watched the last defense platform go dark. "It's about understanding that sometimes those supposed inefficiencies are exactly what you need. Humanity didn't survive and thrive by becoming perfect. We did it by staying adaptable." As the immediate crisis passed, rescue ships began approaching the colony, their own systems a similar mix of old and new technology. The Vigilance demonstration had proven more than just effective. It had shown a path forward that no one, human or collective, had considered. The defense platforms are completely offline, Patel confirmed. Colony shields are stabilizing. We did it, Commander. Sarah nodded, but her attention was on the collective vessel. You came here to optimize us, she transmitted, to make us more like you. But maybe there's something else to consider. Maybe true advancement isn't about achieving perfect efficiency. Maybe it's about maintaining the flexibility to solve problems in ways that perfection would never consider. The collective's response was slower this time, as if processing this new concept required significant computation. Your species' approach introduces variables we had not considered. Perhaps optimization requires redefinition. As the crew of the Vigilant began assisting with colonial repairs, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. The collective had arrived expecting to find a primitive species in need of optimization. Instead, they had found something far more interesting. A civilization that had learned to turn its own technological history into an advantage, creating solutions that no amount of pure advancement could match. The battle for New Eden was over, but the lesson it taught would reshape humanity's relationship with both its own technology and the advanced civilizations beyond the stars. Sometimes the best way forward wasn't to discard the past, but to learn how to use every tool, every technique, every scrap of human ingenuity in ways that no one could predict or control. 3 weeks after the New Eden incident, the Vigilant floated in high orbit above Earth, her hybrid systems humming quietly as Commander Sarah Chen observed the unprecedented gathering below. The massive ships of the collective no longer appeared as threatening as they had before. Their impossible geometries now seemed more curious than imposing as they positioned themselves around humanity's homeworld. The last colonial representatives are arriving now, Zhang reported from her communication station, where she monitored both quantum channels and radio frequencies. Everyone's eager to see how this plays out. The Great Hall of the United Earth Government was hosting something unprecedented. The first formal diplomatic exchange between humanity and the Nexus Collective. But unlike traditional first contact scenarios, this one had a unique focus: technological exchange and mutual advancement. Collective vessels are transmitting, Patel announced. They're different from before. Their signals are coming through on multiple frequencies, including some of our older bands. I think they're actually trying to adapt to our communication methods. Sarah smiled. The collective had learned perhaps the most important lesson about true advancement. Sometimes moving forward meant being willing to look in all directions. Put it on screen, she ordered. The main viewport filled with an image that would have been impossible just weeks ago. Collective representatives, their forms still geometrically complex, interfacing with human diplomats through a mixture of holographic projections and traditional video feeds. More importantly, they were discussing not how to optimize humanity, but how both species could learn from each other. The collective admits that our original assessment of human technological development was incomplete, the alien spokesperson was saying, their voice now carried through multiple channels simultaneously. Your species' ability to maintain and combine multiple technological approaches has demonstrated a form of advancement we had not previously considered. The human representative, Dr. Maya Patel, no relation to Sarah's ensign, nodded in agreement. And we've learned that pure advancement isn't always the answer. The collective's expertise in quantum technology offers us incredible opportunities, but not at the expense of what we've already built. Sarah turned to Rodriguez, who was monitoring the proceedings with intense interest. How are the fleet modifications coming along? Better than anyone expected, he replied, pulling up a status report on both holographic and traditional displays. Every ship in the fleet is being fitted with some version of the hybrid interface network, each one slightly different, each one combining technologies in unique ways. The collective is actually helping us optimize the connections between old and new systems without trying to replace either. The diplomatic feed continued, showing how the relationship between humans and the collective had evolved. Where once the advanced aliens had seen only primitive chaos to be corrected, they now recognized the strength in humanity's technological diversity. And humans, while eager to learn from the collective's mastery of quantum science, held firm to their belief in maintaining multiple approaches to every problem. "Look at this," Pytel called out, directing their attention to a new set of readings. "The collective ships, they're actually installing analog backup systems. They're learning from us just as much as we're learning from them." Sarah watched as the diplomatic proceedings continued, remembering how differently this could have ended. If the collective had succeeded in their original plan to optimize humanity by force, both species would have lost something precious: the ability to see beyond a single path of advancement. "Commander," Zhang interrupted her thoughts, "we're receiving new orders from Fleet Command. They want the Vigilant to lead a joint human collective mission to the outer colonies. Apparently, our experience with hybrid systems makes us uniquely qualified to help establish the new cooperative protocols. The collective's optimization protocols have been fundamentally revised," Rodriguez added, reading from his own updates. "They're calling it adaptive optimization now. The idea that true advancement comes not from pursuing a single perfect path, but from maintaining the flexibility to use any approach that works." Sarah stood at her command station, looking out at the gathered ships of both species. The collective vessels still dwarfed human ships in size and raw power, but there was a different energy to their presence now. Instead of trying to force humanity to advance along their predetermined path, they had learned to appreciate the beauty of multiple approaches working in harmony. "Send our acknowledgement to Fleet Command," she ordered. "Tell them the Vigilant stands ready to assist with the joint mission." She turned to her crew, seeing in their faces the same pride and determination that had carried them through the crisis. Humanity's journey to the stars was never about reaching some final, perfect state of advancement. It was about learning, adapting, and remembering that every step forward builds on everything that came before. As the Vigilant prepared for its new mission, Sarah reflected on how their confrontation with the collective had changed both species. Humanity had gained access to incredible new technology, but more importantly, they had gained confidence in their own approach to advancement. And the collective, for all their superior technology, had learned that true optimization wasn't about achieving perfection. It was about maintaining the wisdom to know when to use each tool at your disposal. The diplomatic feed showed the signing of the first human collective cooperation treaty, its terms transmitted simultaneously through quantum networks and traditional communications channels. It was more than just a peace agreement. It was a recognition that different paths to advancement could coexist and strengthen each other. "All systems ready," Rodriguez reported as they prepared to depart. "Quantum drive synchronized with backup systems, all hybrid interfaces operating at peak efficiency." "Take us out," Sarah ordered, watching as Earth and the gathered collective ships fell away behind them. "Let's show the galaxy what happens when you combine the wisdom of the past with the promise of the future." The Vigilant accelerated into deep space, her systems a harmony of old and new technology working together in ways neither humanity nor the collective had imagined possible just weeks ago. She carried with her not just the hopes of Earth, but the promise of a new kind of advancement, one that recognized that the path forward wasn't always a straight line, and that sometimes the best way to face the future was to remember everything that had brought you to the present. Behind them, Earth continued its diplomatic dance with the collective, both species learning from each other, growing stronger together than either could have been alone. The crisis that had begun with an attempt at forced optimization had ended with something far more valuable: the understanding that true advancement came not from perfection, but from the endless ability to adapt, to learn, and to remember that every tool, no matter how old or new, had its place in the universe.